Check, is this going?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another segment of Asaph Cafe. I am your host, Asaph Adonai, and affectionately on my left, our aging rocker, Emmett. And this time we are on the set of the original Star Trek, the episode called The Cage. And we'll get more into that in a little bit. You want to start us off, Emmett?
Yeah, just a question. Is the audio going?
Yeah.
Check, is this going? Is this all right, all right.
We've already done that. Perfect.
Heavenly Father, bless our time and our cola together in Jesus' name.
Amen. Okay.
Yeah.
So as I stated, we are on the backdrop of an episode called The Cage. And this came out in 1964. Now, for the television audience that's not familiar, let's go back and do a little trivia here.
Yeah.
In 1964, Gene Roddenberry created a pilot called Star Trek. And during that time period, they had a bunch of westerns on television. It was westerns like The Virginian. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Oh yeah, I've seen little bits of it.
Wagon Train. The Virginian went like this.
Never cared for the westerns, but yeah, I've seen them. You know, little things of gun smoke and that kind of thing. And oh yeah.
That was the theme to the Virginian. But anyway, they had a slew of westerns: the Rifleman, the Virginian, Gunsmoke, and just
a lot of them are now on MeTV.
Yeah. But where I'm going with this is that television was flooded with westerns. So when Gene Roddenberry came out with the original Star Trek, he didn't want it to be a western in space. That would have been very corny. You know that. Bang bang, John Wayne, shoot 'em up,
lasers
in space.
I would have loved it.
But see, he didn't want to do that. I saw the documentary.
I saw
the documentary. Yeah, he didn't want to do a western in space. He wanted to tell stories.
Yeah,
real stories like the story with "Let This Be Your Last Battlefield."
Yes.
Black, half white. You know,
Yeah.
He wanted to tell stories that were relevant of that time period. So they came out with this episode called The Cage, and basically for the television audience, because there may be someone who doesn't know, you know, with these generations. They just think William Shatner. They don't think that there was a beginning.
Yeah.
So anyway, in this episode of The Cage, they went to this planet called Talos 4. And they had these beings that were on this planet, and they had this ability to make people relive things in their mind that they had already lived. And so the original Enterprise went to check this planet out. And what these creatures were doing is they were capturing people from different planets, different specimens. They were capturing these people as specimens just to observe them and, you know, stuff like, you know, how science fiction movies are. So by the time they got the Enterprise there, you know, the captain's going to always resist everything and so on. But that's kind of the format of the show. And Gene Roddenberry didn't want it to be a Western. So this was like real good drama.
Oh, yeah, it was an excellent.
But NBC rejected it. Seriously. NBC liked the show. They just didn't like this pilot. So they gave Roddenberry a second chance. That's when they came up with William Shatner and Dr. McCoy and the rest, and then the rest is history. So that's just a bit of trivia there. But the lady in the silver-looking dress, her name was Susan Oliver in real life, and I'm singling her out because she was the main character in this episode. She's also the first lady to ever be green, the first green lady to ever appear on television. That was Susan Oliver, for, you know, trivia buffs. She's the very first person. Now, the second person to ever be a green lady on the Star Trek series later was an actress named Yvonne Craig, best known as playing Batgirl on the Batman TV series.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah.
That was Yvonne Craig. She was the second green lady. But Susan Oliver was the first green lady. And then, of course, the guy on her left, that was Captain Christopher Pike. Now, his name was Jeffrey Hunter in real life. He was a movie star. In fact, he played Jesus in the film King of Kings. He was a big-time movie star. So in those days, a lot of movie stars didn't want to go into television. But he did for this show. But then after they did this original pilot, he decided to go back to doing his films and movies because he did a lot of good movies, psychological thrillers and all kinds of stuff. And then the lady on the far left of the screen, right of the screen, I should say, her name was Majel Barrett. She played number 1.
Yes, yes.
She also happens to be Gene Roddenberry's wife in real life at the time. She also later on became Nurse Chapel.
Yep, yep.
And had blonde hair. So I don't know if she's wearing a wig in this scene or if they dyed her hair.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I don't know, but anyway, these were the characters, the main characters, primarily. Now, the lady on the far left of the screen, the red hair actress, I don't know her name in real life, but she was the yeoman.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, they theologian, I think is what they call.
Yeah, they were theologians. Yes. Tell us,
Theologians. So that sums up the cast of this episode here. But I'm singling out Susan Oliver because she has appeared in over 100 films in her time. A lot of television shows like Gomer Pyle.
Oh yeah.
Jim Neighbors. She was in that. And she was in a show called The Name of the Game. I don't know if you ever heard of that or not.
No, I never have.
It was kind of a detective show of the past.
It wasn't a game show.
No. It was
I think I might have heard of it, years ago.
Sort of like a cop show, like an investigation show.
Yeah, I assumed it was, even when you brought it up, I assumed it was a game show. Name the name of the game.
It had a theme song that went something like this.
I've never gotten into game shows. Well, I did as a kid, but a few of them. But I think of game shows like The Price is Right or whatever.
No, this wasn't a game show. It was called The Name of the Game. It was a detective series.
Oh, okay. It's when you're sick and ill and you have a fever and you have the flu and you're staying home from school and there's nothing else on and you're miserable.
No. Now, this might interest you with the Name of the Game series. What was interesting about this show, there were 3 primary stars. And each week, one of those primary stars was in the episode. Not all 3 of them are the same. One week it would be, Tony Franciosa was one of the main characters. So one week it might be him, or another week it might be Gene Barry.
Yes.
These were famous actors of the past that did the lead on this Name of the Game. Now where I'm going with this is, the character of the Name of the Game, they worked for an organization called People Magazine.
Oh yeah, I've heard of People Magazine many times.
Not the People Magazine we're talking about.
Oh.
Yeah, it was just a coincidence that the name of the agency that the detective worked for was People Magazine.
Oh, okay.
Just some trivia there. Not the people that it's just... It's a small world,
Interesting.
Very small world, but it was People Magazine that the investigator worked for. But of course, theirs was not that paparazzi.
Yes.
Just some stuff.
Interesting.
Here. But getting back to Susan Oliver, though, she was born in 1932, and she went to Swarthmore College, where she was doing her, I guess, early drama studies. Like Broadway theater, that kind of thing. She also went to the neighborhood Playhouse School of the Theater in New York City. Now, this is when she first got started. And then she went on to do, in 1955, she did her first television appearance in a show called, it was a live drama. They used to have live drama at that time, sort of like a soap opera, I guess the way to describe it. It was called Goodyear TV Playhouse. And then her career just took off. And she went on to appear in like 100, between, television shows and movies, over 100. And some of the shows they haven't mentioned here that she's appeared on. She's been on The Andy Griffith Show. She's been on The Virginian, and The Name of the Game that I mentioned. She's been on Route 66. That was sort of a mouth detective show. You probably never heard of that.
I've heard of it. I never watched it.
Well, this is way before your time. Father Knows Best. It was one of those.
I've heard of that. Yeah, I think I saw that occasionally.
Yeah, so she was in that, and Burke's Law. It was like this attorney show. She was in the Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah, I love the Twilight Zone.
She was on a show called the Barbara Stanwyck Show.
Never heard of that one.
Probably a variety show. Now, Barbara Stanwyck, you may not know her by name, but she played Victoria Barkley on that Western. That Western with, what's the Big Valley. The Big Valley.
I've heard of it, never watched it.
It had a melody that went like something like this. Hold on. You don't recognize it?
Nope. Never watched the show, yeah.
Well, and these are just some of her other accomplishments. She appeared in a show called The Fugitive with
I've heard of The Fugitive, never watched that again.
Jansen.
The reason I heard of The Fugitive was because Alf mentioned it on one of the episodes of Alf, yeah.
Well, okay, the original Fugitive, Dr. Richard Kimball was his name, and he was accused of murdering his wife, but he didn't murder his wife. It was a one-armed man who killed the wife. But Dr. Kimball got blamed for it, so he's running like a fugitive, living pillar to post. To try to find the killer that killed his wife and prove his innocence. That's what that show was about. So they always had the authorities chasing after him as he was living his life as a fugitive, wandering wherever he would live. And Susan also appeared in I Spy with Bill Cosby and Robert Culpe. It had a theme that went something like this. Recognize?
Nope, never watched I Spy either, yep.
Isn't that cool?
Yep.
Perfect spy music, I'm probably butchering that song, but that gives you an idea. So, she's been in Rawhide.
Heard of Rawhide.
Yeah, that Western.
Never watched that either, but I've heard of it. I think that might have even been on Made TV, I can't remember.
Here's the theme. Recognize it.
Nope, never watched it.
Never mind. But anyway, now one of her biggest accomplishments was a movie called Your Cheatin' Heart in 1964. It was the story of the singer Hank Williams. Your cheating heart.
Oh yeah.
Will make you weep, or however that goes. Well, they did a movie based on Hank Williams' life, and Susan Oliver played the wife in that film called Your Cheatin' Heart. It's based on the name of Williams' song, Your Cheatin' Heart. And then, and that was one of her biggest roles. She appeared in a comedy called Disorderly Orderly with Jerry Lewis. And I don't know if you ever saw any Jerry Lewis films.
No.
They were really funny, like The Nutty Professor.
Oh, yeah.
We're not talking about that Eddie Murphy version. We're talking about the original Nutty Professor. There were just some fun, delightful movies that Jerry Lewis did. They were all clean, but just really, really silly, but funny. Fun, silly. And then she appeared in a spy show called The Man from U.N.C.L.E., 1965. And she just, I wouldn't be able to read all the rest of the shows that she's appeared in, but just over like 100, between movies and film. So that gives you an idea of her work. And I'm going to say some more things about her. As I stated, she's the first green woman to ever appear in television. But some other interesting accomplishments about Susan Oliver, she was a pilot in real life, which is pretty impressive. And according to these notes I have on her, in 1967, she was the fourth woman to fly a single-engine aircraft across the Atlantic Ocean. And that's pretty impressive because movie stars and actors aren't known for doing that. Also, in 1970, she co-piloted with Margaret Mead, who was a famous pilot. They entered a race called the Transcontinental Race, the Power Puff Derby, and they wound up winning that race, and Susan became Pilot of the Year. Can you believe that? That's just pretty amazing. for an accomplishment for women, because back in those days they didn't like women flying anyway. I don't know if you're familiar with Amelia Earhart.
I've heard of her.
The lady that, she was like the first lady pilot that attempted to fly across the Atlantic Ocean, I believe it was.
Something like that, yeah.
And her plane went down. But I'd seen documentaries on Amelia Earhart, and there were people who were trying to sabotage her plane. These documentaries are saying, because they were kind of ticked off with a woman attempting this when it was supposed to be a man-dominated sport. You know, the male ego.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Think about that.
Oh yeah.
But by the time Susan Oliver did it, she just became pilot of the year. And of course the planes, I don't know anything about planes, but I assume the technology of planes were a lot better from Amelia Earhart's time to when Susan Oliver flew across. And I think that's just a tremendous accomplishment, not only for a woman, but an actress, movie star. Because she was a big movie star, just you know, just a real big movie star. And so I'm glad that we're on the set so that people watching this cafe can see Susan Oliver and look her up. But she was Vina in this. And what was interesting about this episode here, when she was just about to be born, the character on this show, the ship that they were in crashed on Talos 4, and she was this infant that survived. But the Talosians had never seen a human before. So they didn't know what a human looked like. So when they reconstructed her, she was all twisted and everything.
Yes.
But since they had that power of illusion, they could make her look pretty. And, and they did the same with Captain Pike, you know, when he was in that
exactly. Yeah.
When with the their power of illusion, they can make them like young and everything. So that's just all fun science fiction, you know, all fun science fiction. But Susan Oliver just left the world some great performances, and I got to talk about her. She was my featured story on today's Asaph Stories, and I made it more detailed with video footage and stuff of her. We can't do it on a cafe, but we can have that still picture. In fact, all of these people left an interesting legacy if you think about it. Spock was not the #1 officer in this episode. It was Majel Barrett, the one on the far right of your screen. She was #1. And another, you know, talk about male ego. Gene Roddenberry said that the character of Captain Pike really didn't like women on the bridge. That's that macho that time period. But he made an exception with her because she was really brilliant, smart, can run the ship and think and solve things. And Gene Roddenberry said that they got a lot of letters in those early years about #1's character. Who does she think she is, being that smart on the ship? And blah, 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 blah. Just, you know, where I'm going with this is this mentality that they had in that time period. It's mind-boggling, you know?
Well, I even heard in an interview with Gene Roddenberry, something on TV, that he originally, when he was casting this, wanted a woman to be the captain. He wanted a woman to be the captain, and the TV network said, absolutely not. You're going to have to pick a man to be a captain. We're not going to go with a female captain of the Enterprise. And he said, okay, that's fine, but I'm very disappointed in their chauvinist and sexist ways, so he chose Captain Christopher Pike. But originally he wanted, I guess he got away with a first officer who was a woman. They barely acknowledged that.
He said he got a lot of letters from people complaining about #1's character. You would have thought that people would say, oh, this is cool, we got a woman.
Exactly.
#1 officer on the Enterprise and smart and intelligent. Who does she think she is? That's the kind of letters that he just stood his ground. You know? And of course, you and I will never meet Majel Barrett. She's gone now. She was probably a very nice person in real life. And I can only imagine the letters that she must have gotten. Absolutely, from not only men, but probably women. They said women were writing in ticked off, too, because they're so used to that June Cleaver kind of stay home thing instead of this articulate, smart lady that can run a ship. But that was a time period, you know.
The 60s,
Yeah, it's strange. I'm glad I was too young in that time period.
Same here.
I wasn't grown then.
Same here, definitely.
But Star Trek went on to do some great things in the history of all Star Trek. But even if they didn't have a woman captain in this pilot, they eventually did have a woman captain.
Yeah, they did in Voyager. And I never cared for Voyager. It bored me. The plots were so slow. They could have really done some imaginative stuff. Because if I remember, somehow they were thrown 65 light years away or something in a distant part of the galaxy we never heard about. And so they had to make this 65-year journey and try and find ways to get back to Starfleet, space that they knew about. But all the alien races they could have seen, the things they could have done, the adventures, but they never really took off with it, If you watch Voyager, it's on...
Here's the thing.
Yep, it's on BBC America often, and it's a sleeping pill. The theme was beautiful.
Yeah, that's...
But boy, it was so politically correct. All they did was just nothing. I could have made interesting, incredible science fiction.
I've seen some episodes of Voyager. I didn't think they were too bad.
I was bored.
Well... they were so far away from home. They were 70,000 light years away. So at the topward speed, what, warp 9 or whatever it was, it would take them 75 years to get back. So they'd have to go through a wormhole or something to get home. So they had to deal with whatever the aliens were in that part of the universe.
Well, yeah, and they really never explored that. It was so politically correct. I would have had weird monsters. I would have had giant insects trying to destroy Voyager. I would have had insects telepathically, firing lasers, huge, controlling huge armies. That, and perhaps even one of the things, have you seen those documentaries they have like on BBC America, things about like insects, like the habits of insects? I've often imagined, wouldn't this be a cool science fiction concept if when what they were doing was planning and telepathically planning huge, massive space wars and preparing a space armada in one part of our galaxy against another space armada in another part of our galaxy. Like, let's say it had, what are those things? Those stick insects, the praying mantises, and maybe against an ant, and you saw a documentary. They're both controlling armadas in space. I even thought last night I was watching Planet Earth, life and insects. They were having ants somewhere in Africa or some sort of ants somewhere in Brazil or somewhere, and they were taking all these leaves and then putting them, back in their homes. Well, they were building a spaceship for an advanced armada in the Andromeda galaxy. I just pretend all this stuff. And I was trying to probe their mind.
Maybe they should have hired you to do the writing on Voyager.
I would have loved that. Yeah. And anytime I see any insect type of things on any nature shows, I go, I must probe your mind.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of thing.
But,
more of that type of stuff rather than...
you probably got a good point. But the actress, her name was Kate Mulgrew, the actress that played Captain Janeway. She was a famous actress.
Kate who?
Mulgrew.
Oh, okay.
What's her name in real life? And even though they didn't have the pilot, a female captain in this time period, it's impressive that they did. Even if the series may not be everybody's favorite, at least they had a...
Yeah, that's true. Because that's what Gene Roddenberry had wanted, yes.
But in a way, you might say he got his wish because I think he saw Voyager before he passed away. Yeah,
he did.
And another thing, too, that I had heard about him, they... What's the word? The Star Trek series, they changed the special effects. They updated, remastered them, that's the word.
They did?
Yeah, I don't know if you're aware of that. They remastered the entire Star Trek series of William Shatner.
Oh, yes, I know. I've seen those, yes.
And they're very good. And Gene Roddenberry actually got to see those remastered versions
before
he passed away. And he said, that's what I had in mind when I created Star Trek, but they didn't have the technology in the 60s to do those special effects then.
Exactly. Well, that's like George Lucas in the Star Wars series.
Yeah.
He updated them because he was upset by the way they were in the 70s because he didn't have the technology for his incredible imaginative vision. So, before he made the other ones, 1, 2, and 3, he said, I want to get these right. Now we've got the technology, I want to get the Star Wars series the way I wanted to. I know, and I have them, and they're brilliant. They were incredibly done. You wouldn't even recognize, just incredible. The way they could move what's Han Solo's ship? The Millennium Falcon and some other things. It was brilliant, So it's kind of like that, George Lucas did the same, Yeah, fascinating.
You won't know this. You won't. You won't know this song. That is, they used to play that song. I call it the Danger song. I don't know its real name.
Yeah.
And you would watch Tennessee Tuxedo.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Underdog, and there was Danger. They would always play that. I'll do it again. You recognize it?
Oh yeah, you've played it for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I would even on Voyager had them go to other planets with dinosaurs and lizard creatures that makes T-Rex look like nothing, and they have to run for their lives. But the T-Rexes have laser guns and are fighting. I mean, imaginative stuff. I would want to say, get
because
crazy.
there's like 75,000
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand that. So who knows? Maybe they'll do another Star
They
Trek,
just wanted it. Thing is, they wanted plot and characters, and I know that's important. But every time I hear that, it's like people say, "Well, we want science fiction with plot and characters." So in other words, you don't want special effects, you don't want sci-fi action, you just want about relationships and like data or others figuring out human relationships and how to interact with humans. When I see science fiction as a drooling science fiction fan, I want lasers. I want imagination. I want giant insects battling for the control of the universe with armadas from beyond space. And they have telepathy and they go do 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 do. And what was that stick insect we were talking about a few minutes ago?
Praying mantis.
Yeah, go ahead and keep playing.
Oh, that was the theme of Star Trek.
The praying mantis would control these incredible space armadas for the ants on Earth, building their mounds. Actually, were telepathic and can control these battles from beyond space. And that's what I wanted for Voyager. Wouldn't that have been great? Wow! That kind of thing. And maybe giant insects.
Probably would have preferred that instead of the way they had it.
Exactly.
But it was still impressive to have a female captain, though.
It was.
It really was.
But you can have a female captain and maybe even have giant insects stinging the Enterprise. Giant insects that are bigger than the Enterprise, and they live in space, and they actually coil themselves around and try and sting the Enterprise with venom. That would have been awesome. Than sting each other to death. That kind of thing.
Monsters and
lasers and aliens and imaginative sci-fi that make you go, wow, that was science fiction. That's really what I wanted so badly to see in Voyager, because they had such an opportunity and they blew it, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people probably feel that way, but I still appreciate the show anyway, even if it's kind of like drum in comparison.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they did get this lady captain, though. And the actress, Kate, she was perfect in that role.
Yeah, normally I don't like wildlife films, but I like the ones with insects because you can get so imaginative if you have a science fiction that kind of thing. It's like, even if they show like wars between ant colonies, because ant colonies do a whole bunch of, that type of wars, they're fighting for control, of an army, of galactic armies and armadas in space in the Sombrero Galaxy, that kind of thing. That's what I like to see, What do you think of that? Wouldn't that be a great
Something like that.
What was that theme to? That I can't remember.
I can't think of its name, but they always play it like when they have like the little events like the Queen.
Oh yes. But that's what I wanted for Voyager. So I don't know. You just, if I do like Star Trek: The Next Generation, some episodes. And some episodes were so dull, I can't. But if there's a marathon of Star Trek: The Next Generation, I'll watch that.
Speaking of The Next Generation, I had the chance once for $25 to buy the entire series on VHS. From the pilot to the last episode, they were all in this box. I wasn't gone but an hour when I came back, somebody had bought it.
Whoa.
I guess for a collector's item, I should have bought it on the spot when I had the chance. I regret that.
Oh yeah.
Had every episode in
wow, that is cool. That is so cool,
And I failed to get it. But
and even sometimes, honestly, with Star Trek: The Next Generation, they kind of missed opportunities.
You think so?
Yes. Do you remember it was one of the first seasons? I can't remember what it was called, where no man has gone before. They had this technical theorist.
Star Trek?
No, to The Next Generation.
Okay.
in one of the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation, they had this technical theorist and this alien from another planet who would kind of disappear and reappear, some weird thing. They were trying to test the warp engines to see how far they could go. Well, on their first test, they left our galaxy, the Milky Way, and passed through 2 other galaxies and into a third galaxy we'd never heard of. No starship had ever been out that far. Well, I couldn't believe the captain's response. Captain Picard said, well, now that we know that it works, I think we should go back home, and if it really works, we can send a science vessel, not an exploratory vessel, to investigate this new galaxy.
He said that, huh?
Yeah, so they tried to go back home. Now, when they tried to go back home, they went to another dimension.
Really?
They went, and there were just all these shapes and things and lights going around, and the captain asked, where are we? It was an area of space beyond the universe that thought could become reality.
Okay.
Finally, it was this alien that had been really doing it, so we'll make a long story short, he was able to, the travelers, they call them, were able to get them back home to their own galaxy, the Milky Way, but if I'd been the series producer, I would have had them explore this third galaxy.
Okay, yeah.
All new stuff, kind of like, the insects I was talking about, some other fantastical creature. And then let's try and get back home. The final conclusion for the first season would have been they go to that area in space where, thoughts become realities. And the conclusion would have been, how that was the conclusion, to be continued. Where are we? They miss such an opportunity to explore new things. That's their whole charter mission, is to go where no man has gone before and had the most incredible adventures, but they wanted to be safe.
Yeah.
Why would anyone want to send a science vessel to investigate a new galaxy when it is an exploratory vessel? The Enterprise has all the scientific equipment you want. They don't need to chicken out and go back to known space and send a science vessel that isn't near as equipped as the Enterprise, because the Enterprise is the Starfleet's flagship. I don't understand, and I just kind of cringed. I like the episode, but don't you guys just cringe when you see that, if you're a drooling science fiction fan who freaks out like me on every single thing in science fiction, to the point where, folks, if I see a documentary on insects, I'm thinking my own science fiction adventures and conclusions. So with me, who is fanatic, drooling, obsessive, compulsive on everything in science fiction, I want to see science fiction. I'm sure you do as well.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you're just drooling, obsessive, compulsive, and freaking out every time you see Star Trek and tearing out your hair. And we, as science fiction fanatics who are obsessive compulsive, want to see more action lasers rather than, wandering around the bridge and Data thinking of plot and characters. There were some dorky episodes. I'll watch them. But like Data's Day was one of the worst episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation they ever made.
I don't know that one.
Ooh, that was a turkey.
Data's Day?
Where Data wanders around the Enterprise figuring out human emotions and human interactions and trying to interact with the crew in an appropriate way. It's like, what is this? His own personal log of human interaction. Another turkey where he wanted to experience romantic love and relations. So he had a girlfriend. One of the officers on the Enterprise was attracted to him.
I did see that one, I think, come to
Yeah.
You know what was interesting about that episode to me at the end?
Yeah.
Remember when they broke up?
Yes.
And she said something about I went into one man that
was complete emotionless.
And then jumped into another episode where someone
Yes.
was capable of
emotion.
And he goes, well, I will delete the appropriate program. And it was interesting how he just was able to cut all that off.
Yes.
Where I'm going with that is, in real life, a lot of people do that, when they get into relationships. I've always been amazed how two people can have a relationship, and when they break up, one could just turn it off like it never happened.
Yes.
No,
Mm-hmm.
I've always been amazed by that.
I guess because it really doesn't. They find out it really wasn't working in the first place.
Yeah, but there are people in real life who can just turn their emotions off like the drop of a hat, and I've always been puzzled by that.
Yeah.
Maybe you've never had them. I don't know. That's what that made me think.
Yeah, it's
of
interesting.
With that episode. Yeah. But anyway, almost 50 minutes have already gone by. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I think this is one of the more interesting shows we ever did. I don't know how it was going to end up, but...
Yeah, well, we still have a few more moments here, but anyway, I'm just glad that they were able to do the Star Trek pilot. And if NBC had accepted this first pilot, The Cage, Star Trek probably would have gone a different direction.
Yeah.
Than what we know it today. Just food for thought.
Yeah.
But they took footage from this cage and they put it in the menagerie.
Yeah, the two-parter, the only two-parter they ever had.
That's why when they had the footage when they were showing when they were younger, it was believable because they really were younger. Like I stated, it was a 2-year time period for real.
Yep.
From the time they did the cage to the time they did the menagerie. So it was credible showing those scenes going back. Just food for thought for trivia buffs. But yeah, I'm a Trekkie too. Have you ever been to a Star Trek convention?
No, I've been to science fiction conventions, but I'd love to go to a Star Trek convention.
I did go to one once. Oh gosh, I must have been like in junior high school or something at the time. I actually got to see the actor that played Mr. Sulu and Chekhov. They were the main characters of this particular Star Trek convention I went to. And it was interesting because they were selling Star Trek memorabilia like phasers and the Enterprise, and they were just talking about the careers and the show. And I'm sure that the Star Trek conventions today in 2018 are way more fancier than at that time because they have more Star Trek shows to work with. They have the Enterprise, they have the Next Generation, they have Voyager, they have Deep Space Nine, they have the movies, stuff like that. So, but I did get to go to one, so it was pretty cool. It was kind of primitive in comparison. They were selling those shirts, with the little star.
Yes.
The Captain Kirk shirt. Or
whatever.
And the models used to be kind of cheap little models.
I remember those,
They put the little glue on there, and half the time the wings would fall off.
I have one of those. I have the Farragut.
Yeah, and the wings would pretty much fall off and stuff.
One of mine did, as a matter of fact.
You glue it on and it stayed for like an hour. It's broken.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
someone gave me that. He had already put it together, but I remember making one of those with a friend of mine in elementary school, and someone had given me a model, I don't have that one, but I do have the Farragut a friend of mine gave me. Remember that earthquake we had a few years ago?
Yeah, I think so.
Remember that one in the summer? You had felt it too, and I felt.
I remember.
I was jolted out of my sleep. I was, what the heck? The Farragut it's in my bedroom. It's on my bookshelf where I have some science fiction books and some other things. It fell off. It got broken. The wing got broken. The thing just fell off. I had to put it back on. I was like, what happened?
Earthquake.
Yeah. But yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, they'll always have models. They even had records of Star Trek. Like, phonograph records where they tell a story or something. Audio tapes. They had all sorts of things. They had Star Trek books. Well, at least some documentaries about the book. I'm not sure what they had all, but they had a lot of things, They've still got Star Trek books somewhere, I think.
Probably. I'm listening to you.
I read some of them. Some of them are kind of boring. Can't remember the whole thing. Yeah, I just couldn't get into some of them, It's like, Like I said, I want more imagination.
Yeah.
If I were one of the creators of Star Trek, let's say if I had created Voyager, instead of whoever was doing it, and Rick Berman or Rick someone or someone, I would ask for submissions from science fiction authors or anyone and emphasize not plot and characters, but wild imagination. Think wild science fiction. The wilder, the more imaginative, even the more lasers and the more action, the better. That's what I want. Those are the submissions I would take. I would have rejected Data's Day, and I would have rejected the submission for the... I would have rejected the script where Data falls in love with, or not falls in love with, but a crew member falls in love with Data. And I would have said, no, that's not weird enough. I want ones with giant insects and giant animals. I want ones with wild aliens telepathic going, with antennas going, That's what I want. I don't want Data's Day figuring out humor or whatever. No, in scrap pile,
Yeah.
Thank you very much, but you're too much with plot and characters. It's important. And plot and characters. Star Wars did have plot and characters.
Yeah,
With, the Jedi, do you reject the temptations to go to the dark side? Luke is, Darth Vader's your father and you have to fight your own father. That's plot and characters. You can have all the plot and characters you want, but it has to be believable and it can't be boring. You still gotta have lasers and science fiction action. If you're bored where it's only plot and characters, what's the point? Battlestar Galactica had tons of lasers, but it had plot and characters. Like Apollo's wife died. She died at the hands of a Cylon because she had been temporarily in the military. And when all the shuttle pilots were ill, well, it was in one of the early episodes of Battlestar Galactica. She was on a planet, and a Cylon just turned around, took his laser, and fired, and it killed Apollo's wife. They had just been married a few days. That was just heartbreaking. And so Boxy, the little boy, now lost both his parents. He lost his biological dad and his biological mom, and Apollo had to be a surrogate father. Now that's good plot and characters, but it still had tons of lasers. So this idea that you must only have plot and characters, and if you have alien insects firing lasers from their antennas, that it's goofy and not realistic and it's just escapism and that's just science fiction weirdness. I don't agree. I think it's wonderful because in outer space, I was watching on the Science Network. I'm sure we're running out of time.
Go ahead.
Have you ever heard of the Hubble Space Telescope?
Yes, I have.
Well, and some of the what they're discovering out in outer space, because they were having a show called How the Universe Works, and some others, they were discussing black holes, the new stuff about black holes, that they can actually bend space and time. If we even had a probe to go to a massive black hole in the middle of our galaxy, it makes science fiction. This is not something even the most brilliant science fiction writers could think about. They talked about constant quasars and pulsars and some of the planets we've discovered, the exoplanets we've actually discovered, and it's wilder than science fiction. So this idea that in space you're only going to find aliens like this, or you're only going to find humanoid aliens that maybe if you're pregnant, like in one of them, that you sneeze, that's not true. Truth is stranger than fiction out there. It was just odd at God's majesty. Only God could create huge black holes where if you take a probe, space and time and the laws of physics are all obliterated. And it's not science fiction. Scientists have figured this out because they've seen this black hole and trained it. They're like, whoa, and whoa. You could even come out into the other side of the universe or another dimension. That's not science fiction. This was on the Science Network, How the Universe Exists, how actual scientists at NASA are figuring out all this stuff. And it's like, it makes Star Trek look almost like nothing compared to real science. Science, what we're catching up now, is very much stranger than fiction.
Well, when we get to heaven, we can probably explore the universe.
We can, like that. I can't wait, but
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And we got about less than 10 minutes left. This whole hour went by really quick.
Yep.
I want to do a trick. Oh, I didn't say it white. Take two, Asaph. A quick tribute to Mom.
Yes, absolutely.
We had Mother's Day not too long ago, and I don't think we got to. You and I paid tributes to our mother. So, hi, Mom. I have two moms, and I'm closer to my second mom. So she to me is like Mom.
Yeah.
And I shared with you that she is 86 now. Time for her to go home with her family. So I hope she'll get the opportunity to do that. But while we're doing this quick tribute, I just wanted to say Happy Mother's Day, Mom. Her name is Lois. I won't mention her last name on television, so embarrass her. But she knows I love her, so she's just a sweetie. And so I want to pay that quick tribute to Mom.
Wonderful.
Did you get to see your family at all Mother's Day?
No, I didn't.
But you did see your mom recently, didn't you?
Oh, that year, a couple of years ago, yeah.
Well, now I'll give my chance here. Sunrise Mall, they contacted me about possibly playing the piano for the Christmas holiday.
Wonderful.
So I'll be going back to California if I get that chance. And I'll see Mom and play and see where the good Lord leads, and be fun. Well, we got a few minutes left. Any final things you want to say? This went by real fast.
Yes,
and I'm just had fun. But I wanted to talk a lot about Susan Oliver because that's a person you don't hear about every day. Stuff like that.
There were these two washing machines, and they were seeing this fan, this fan like this fascinating fan. There were these two washing machines, and they were staring at this spinning fan. Isn't this fascinating? Isn't that surreal? Then this one washing dryer came along and said, "Oh, I can't see around that." Wasn't that hilarious?
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for the joke, and thanks for hanging out with me at the cafe.
Certainly.
I can't think of any final words to say.
Nor can I.
Let's just wind this down. I am your host, Asaph Cafe, and affectionately on my left, our aging rocker, Emmett. And we are on this set of The Cage, the original Star Trek pilot Cage, with Susan Oliver. So she left the world some great, memorable films. She did Western, she did it all. Westerns, dramas, comedy. But I think it's a safe assumption she'll always be remembered for this Star Trek episode. And she'll always be remembered for playing Vina, the Green Lady.
Yeah, definitely. I guess in real life, I don't really like insects that much. Like, I hate houseflies and horseflies and stinging insects. But if you see it, like, on the Science Channel, or you see it, a BBC America documentary, that you can they look like aliens, so you can let your imagination run wild.
Right. So on that note, let's wrap this up. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us, and until our next show, Maranatha.
The spinning dryer.
Please on that chord. Well, make yourself at home, and I'll shut everything down.